This animal gets bitten by a cobra and finishes its meal anyway. It picks fights with lions, it breaks out of steel cages using tools, and in 2002, Guinness World Records gave it an official title, the most fearless animal on Earth. This is the honey badger, and almost everything you think you know about it is only half true. Here's the real story. Meet Mellivora capensis, the honey badger, also called the ratel. Despite the name, it's not really a badger at all. It belongs to the weasel family, the Mustelidae, alongside otters and ferrets. But it's so different from the rest of them that scientists gave it its own subfamily, just for itself. It's found across sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and parts of South Asia, barely the size of a large house cat. And somehow, in almost every one of those ranges, it doesn't rank near the bottom of the food chain. It ranks near the top. So the question this video is actually asking isn't, is the honey badger fearless? It's, what does an animal this small have to be built like to survive being this reckless? Let's start with the part you can see. The first weapon isn't a claw or a tooth, it's the skin itself. A honey badger's hide is over 6 millimeters thick in places, roughly 3 times thicker relative to its size than a buffalo's. And it's not just thick, it's loose enough that when something grabs the honey badger by the back of the neck, the animal can twist completely around inside its own skin and bite back. That combination, thick and loose, is rare in nature, and it's the reason bee stings barely register. Porcupine quills often can't find skin to lock into, and even a bite from a lion doesn't always land where the lion needs it to. This is a body built less like a predator and more like an animal that expected to lose every fight and prepared for it anyway. Here's where the honey badger's reputation gets exaggerated, and where the real science is actually stranger than the myth. Honey badgers are not immune to snake venom. That part is a misconception. What they have is resistance, a specific evolved defense against one of the deadliest weapons in the animal kingdom. Most venomous snake bites kill by targeting a receptor in muscle cells called the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. Neurotoxins lock onto it and shut down the muscles that control breathing. Biologists studying honey badgers found that their version of that receptor has mutated just enough that the toxin can't get the same grip. It's the same trick evolution gave mongooses, for the same reason. Hunt snakes for a living long enough and you either adapt or you don't get to keep hunting them. But resistance isn't immunity. A honey badger bitten by a puff adder or a cobra can still go down, sometimes for real. Which brings us to the moment that made this animal an internet legend in the first place. There's a documented pattern verified by researchers in places like Kruger National Park. A honey badger, bitten by a snake strong enough to drop it, will sometimes collapse, appear completely unconscious for a few hours, and then simply get back up and finish eating the snake that just tried to kill it. That's not the only fight it picks. Honey badgers have been documented driving off leopards, fighting packs of hyenas, and raiding lion kills in broad daylight, not because they win every time, but because they act like losing was never on the table to begin with. They'll dig into beehives for honey and larvae while absorbing hundreds of stings that would send most mammals running. Researchers who study fear responses in animals describe honey badger behavior less as fearlessness and more as an unusually high threshold before the retreat instinct kicks in at all. It's a strategy that shouldn't work as often as it does, and yet, across most of its range, almost nothing hunts the honey badger back. In the early 2000s, a rescued honey badger named Stoffel arrived at the Moholoholo Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in South Africa, recovering from a lion attack that had nearly killed him. His caretakers built him an enclosure meant to be escape-proof. Stoffel treated it as a puzzle. He learned to undo one lock, then climbed to reach a second. When staff added wire, he unwound it. When they built higher walls, he and another badger stacked rocks into a makeshift ramp to climb over them. Every fix bought the center a few more days at most. It wasn't luck. It was problem-solving, repeated and refined, the same kind of tool use researchers usually associate with primates. Stoffel became internationally famous for it. But strip away the meme. And what's left is one of the clearest documented cases of complex problem-solving in a carnivore that size, proof that the honey badger's reputation isn't just about toughness. It's about a genuinely sharp animal that happens to also be nearly impossible to hurt. When teeth, claws, and thick skin aren't enough, the honey badger has one more layer: scent. Glands near the base of its tail can release a strong, foul secretion, detectable from over 40 meters away, used both to mark territory and to warn off anything getting too close. It's not quite a skunk's spray, but the message is the same: back off or find out what happens next. Combined with a low growl, bared teeth, and a body language that reads as not backing down, it's usually enough to end a confrontation before it starts. Which says something about this animal's whole strategy. Escalate confidently and rely on the body and the reputation to close the deal before the real fight has to happen. Female honey badgers raise their cubs completely alone. The males play no part at all. After a gestation of around 6 months, she gives birth to usually just one cub in a hidden burrow. For the first 2 to 3 months, the cub barely leaves that burrow, blind and helpless at first, entirely dependent on her for warmth, milk, and protection. Protection here is not passive. Documented sightings, including a widely verified case captured on video, show a mother honey badger fighting off a leopard alone to pull her cub back to safety. It's the same all-or-nothing instinct from earlier in this video, except now the stakes are someone else's life, not her own. Feeding follows the same pattern of total commitment. Once the cub is old enough, the mother starts bringing prey back to the den, and researchers in Kruger National Park have directly observed cubs following their mothers on foraging trips, watching and copying every dig, every raid on a bee's nest, every attempt at prey too big or too dangerous to catch alone. She keeps her cub away from the most lethal prey, venomous snakes especially, until it has the coordination to handle them. That caution, not any shortcut to immunity, is what actually protects a cub the honey badger's first year. For safety, she moves her cub to a new den roughly every few days, carrying it in her mouth like a cat carrying a kitten. It's over a year, some studies say 14 months or more, before that cub is ready to do any of this alone. So, fearless? Not exactly. A honey badger that gets bitten by a cobra isn't ignoring the danger. It's absorbing a real, measurable risk over and over because millions of years of evolution built a body that can usually afford to lose that bet. Thick skin, venom resistance that falls short of immunity, a brain sharp enough to outplan its own cage. That's not fearlessness. That's an animal that never learned how to lose, because for it, most of the time, losing just isn't fatal. If you want to see the other animals that made this list of things that shouldn't be this hard to kill, the full bestiary lineup is one tap away, and a new one goes up every day.